Have your Bible. I want y'all to go with me to Proverbs. I'm about to unplug the instruments. I'm trying to preach and they want to keep pushing me. Proverbs chapter 15. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 3. I'm going to be reading from the King James Version. Proverbs chapter 15. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 3. Hallelujah. If you found it, come on and say amen. Thank you. We got meat lovers in our presence. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 3. Don't get too comfortable because I have many more scriptures. But my main text is Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 3 from the King James Version. And it reads, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good." I'm going to read it again. Proverbs 15, chapter 3, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good." You may have your seat in the presence of an almighty, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-loving, everlasting God. I want to expound in your hearing this morning on the subject matter, Jesus is watching. That's why I did all of that in the beginning, because I knew that at the end of this sermon, nobody would be dancing or shouting. So you're welcome. I got it out in the beginning. Jesus is watching. There is an American documentary television series that my wife has gotten me hooked to yet again. This documentary television series is found on ID, Investigation Discovery. It's the ID channel. And this show made its debut back on January the 12th of 2010. And the name of this series is called I Almost Got Away With It. So this series, it profiles true stories of people who have committed crimes, and they have been able to avoid arrest or capture, but ultimately they get caught. Many of these people have escaped from prison after being sentenced, or they have escaped from jail while they are waiting their trial. And sometimes they are on the run for as little as a few days, weeks, but there have been others who have been on the run for decades. They almost got away with it. The key word is almost. But ultimately they get caught. And then they describe in detail what they were doing throughout the process. Some of them had gotten very comfortable and confident that they had gotten away. So they become a little lax, if you will, in their behavior. They begin to run their mouth to the right people, which eventually leads to their capture. This is more of a prophetic warning message to God's people. He says to tell my people there are a lot of people who have done some ungodly things in the dark. And because they have not been discovered, and because they have not been captured, let them know they almost got away. But eventually you will be captured. You all have heard it. What's done in the dark will come to the light. It is amazing to me how we think that because we can fool people, that we also have fooled God. You can fool me all the time. My children can tell me that they were where they were supposed to be and be somewhere else and get away with it. Why? Because I can't be everywhere all the time. I can even put a tracker on that Apple phone, that devil's phone, that Apple phone. I could even put a tracker on there, and all you got to do is tell your friend to keep it where you're supposed to be. So I can't. You can fool me, but you cannot fool God. So I need to tell you to be careful, because the eyes of the Lord are everywhere, beholding the evil and the good. All right, stay with me. Don't turn that dial. I got these people in here. Lock the doors so they can't get out. I have these secure in here. You don't change the dial. There was a burglar who broke into a house one night, and he shined his flashlight all around, looking for valuables in the dark. When out of nowhere, there was a voice in the dark said, "Jesus knows you are here." The burglar nearly jumps out of his skin. He clicks his flashlight off, and he backs up real slow and quiet, and he freezes. And when he hears nothing more after a bit, he shook his head and he continued. Turns back on his flashlight, and he's looking for valuables. And just as he pulls the stereo out, this is when we used to have those stereos in our house that had those big old speakers, and you had to wire the radio to the speakers, where he had pulled the radio out, and he was just about to disconnect the wires, and clear as a bell, he heard, "Jesus is watching you." Freaked out. I mean, totally afraid. He shines his light all around the room, searching frantically, looking for the source of the voice, scratching his head. And then finally, in the corner of the room, his flashlight beam came to rest on a parrot. He looks at the parrot and he says, "Did you say that, bird?" As he hissed at the parrot. "Yep." The parrot confessed. And then the parrot squawked, "I'm just trying to warn you that he is watching you." The burglar relaxes. "Warn me?" He's like, "Who in the world are you?" You know, when you first feel like you're about to get caught, you get a little humble. You become a little repentant in the moment. But as soon as you discover that you have not been caught, then you get cocky again. Says, "Warn me? Who in the world are you?" The bird replied, "Moses." Just like you in here, the burglar laughed. "Moses? What kind of people would name a bird Moses?" The bird says, "The kind of people that would name a Rottweiler Jesus." He's watching you. And what I like about this story is the Rottweiler saw the burglar, but the burglar never saw the Rottweiler. The second thing I like about this story is that the Rottweiler never attacked. He sat there and he just watched. What I also like about the story is the parrot was given a warning. He's watching you. Jesus knows you're here. And so guess what? God has sent me on an assignment, if you will, like a parrot, to warn you that Jesus is watching. Yeah. You might be tipping and dipping, slipping and sliding, but can I tell you, Jesus is watching. We don't preach like this anymore. Why? Because holiness. People don't want to hear holiness. They want to hear you getting a big car, or you getting a big house, money coming to me. We want to hear all of this good stuff, but yet nobody wants to teach holiness. Holiness is still right. I want to thank Live Cold Church of God in Christ, where I learned from Mud Deer. When I went, I learned about holiness. And I want to thank God that I'm striving to live holy every day. Holy means to be set apart. Somebody has to stand for righteousness. Somebody has to stand up and say, you're wrong, and the Bible is right. How is it that we now can pick and choose which part of the Bible we want to follow? Uh-oh. Did y'all shout in the beginning? After the sermon, go back and rewind it to the beginning. Get your shout in, then come back. My assignment today is to warn you that Jesus is watching. I want to borrow from Nate Sullivan. He wrote this Bible study lesson entitled Omnipotent, Omniscient, and Omnipresent God, Definition and Overview. I want to borrow from his lesson. But first, I want to take you to Psalm 139. Psalm 139. We want to look at stanzas 1 through 18. I may or may not read them all in its entirety, but it's important because we can learn from the psalmist David. He says in stanza 1, "O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me." What? Yes. Your creator knows everything about you. I don't. And can I tell you that the church has been wearing masks way before it was mandated? Some of us are just happy that it got mandated because now you feel like you can hide who you really are behind the mask. It's so easy with social media to pretend to be somebody that you're really not. Because behind social media, I got six-pack abs, got big triceps. I can bench press 600 pounds in one setting. That's who I am behind social media. But when you meet me in person, you be like, that don't seem to be the case. Who are you when nobody is around? That is the definition of character. Who are you when nobody else is around? It's so amazing that we are all actor and actresses on this world stage. Will the real you stand up? He says, Lord, you have examined my heart and know some things. I got any Bible scholars in here? And knows, from the New Living Translation, know everything, or another version says all, and know all about me, your mood, your temperament, your likes, your dislikes, your proclivities, your habits, your attitude, Jordan. He knows everything. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know when I'm at the casino? You know when I go way off in the suburbs to get my lottery ticket hoping nobody sees me? You know when I'm chilling and, just trying to get some other spirits in me? You know everything I do. You sitting here worried about the government tracking you. You better be concerned about God tracking you. Oh, yeah, I had a person talk about I don't use bank cards because they tracking. They track where you're spending your money. And I said, well, do you use the internet? I do. Well, they tracking where you go on the internet too. I said, do you have one of those discount cards? Well, they know what you're eating. Do you have a cell phone? Yeah, I don't use it much. Okay, but when you do, them towers ping and they know exactly your location. Do you have OnStar in your car? Well, they know where you're driving. You're more concerned about the man knowing what you're doing than knowing the man, what the man knows about what you're doing. You got to get your priorities straight. Yeah. Says, you know everything I do. You stanza 4, you know what I am going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessings on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. Too great for me to understand. Why you need to be concerned with why God is watching. I'm glad you asked. If you look at the first 6 stanzas, the first 6 stanzas is showing that God is omniscient. The first 6 stanzas that we just read, David is showing us God's attribute that he is omniscient. Now, all that word means is all-knowing. And we get tripped up on trying to be all-knowing. What do you mean? We try to figure out how God did something or why he's doing something when if he wanted you to know, he would tell you. In the beginning was the Word. Where was God before there? In the beginning. Well, that doesn't make sense. He has no beginning and he has no end. He is Alpha and Omega. He is so large you cannot go around him. He's so tall that you cannot go above him. He's so low that you cannot go beneath him. Talking about a true and a living God. He is alive. So omniscient, it means all-knowing. So the first point I want to make and why you need to know that Jesus is watching is because God is all-knowing. God is all-knowing. And so Mr. Sullivan says that God is all-knowing in the sense that he is aware of the past, the present, and the future. So where are you going, Jonah? Where you think that you can go and hide from God? It is so amazing to me how we think that we can escape the presence of God, but he's everywhere that you are, even in them places you shouldn't be. And just like Jesus, the Rottweiler, he's not saying anything. He's just sitting there watching. Oh, but there's going to come a day that judgment is coming. I'm losing people. God is all-knowing in the sense that he is aware of the past, the present, and the future. That's why I serve him, because the future has already been determined. And if you are on side of Team Jesus, then you have no fear. I have no reason to fear. Nothing takes him by surprise. I get surprised. I get surprised a lot. There are some people, Deacon Jimmy shaking his head, who don't like surprises. Just tell me. Just tell me what you're planning. And then let me decide if I want to act surprised. I'm going to tell you this. If you know, how in the world are you going to act surprised? Somebody trying to give you a surprise birthday party, and you walk in, oh my gosh, you overact. That's how we know you knew. You overact. Oh, wow. It's not natural. It's not real. He says God's knowledge is total. He knows all that there is to know and all that can be known. God is all-knowing. So you can fool your spouse, you can fool your mom, your dad, you can fool your co-workers. But can I tell you, you cannot fool God. You worried about getting caught by me. You worried about getting caught by your boss. You need to make sure that you're being concerned about getting caught by God. Because what happened if he had bit you in the middle of your sin? In that uncompromising position. Like taking a bite out of crime. But thank God for mercy. See, now, let me bring you on back home, because it is his mercies that we have not been consumed. He is warning us. He's given us a heavenly parrot today in the voice of Corey James to say, God is watching you. He is warning you. He's warning you. It's time to live right. Because you're about to be bitten. Then let me look at stanza 7 through 12. Psalmist David said, I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. You can get mad at God all you want. I'm done. Me and God, we done. God's like, okay. Peace. And then wherever you go, he's still there like, how you doing this morning? Just like the burglar, you get startled. Jesus, you here? Uh-huh. I left you at the church. No, I got in the car with you. How did you think you made it home safe? I was in your house last night. Why do you think the burglar didn't break in? I had my angels standing guard. He said, if I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans. Here he's saying, if I go west or if I go east, as far as the east is from the west, you're still there. He says in stanza 10, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me. This is where I wanted to be. I could ask the darkness to hide me. I don't know why we think that darkness we can just hide. You know, the police, they have those infrared glasses and things where they can shine it and it'll show based on your body heat where you are. Oh, it's nighttime. They ain't going to find me under this trash can. Really? They also have a canine unit, in case you weren't aware. So while they're looking for you, they also have a dog that can smell where you are. I told my wife as we watch these crime shows, you look crazy today to try to get away with a crime. Watch the first 48 hours. Watch Dateline. And watch how these detectives, all they do is the first thing they do is they get your phone record. And they find out what tower that were you in the area based on where your phone was. They go through your social media accounts. That's why you got to be careful what you're posting on social media. Did you know that social media is now your first resume? They go and research you on social media. And if you on there acting like you ain't got good sense, God gave an apple, you just lost a job. You clowning on social media for who? Don't turn that down. That's why you just see me just posting stuff, houses and happenings and jobs. Oh, he's a very upstanding man. Yes. And if I wasn't, you weren't going to find out on social media. Some of y'all you just give it away. It's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth or post on Facebook and remove all doubt. All right, let me go on. He says, I could ask the darkness, in stanza 11, I could ask the darkness to hide me. There are people in the church asking the darkness to hide when he's a God of light, but yet you asking darkness to cover you up. Only those that don't want to be covered by Jesus is asking the darkness to cover me. Freaks come out at night. Freaks come out at night. Y'all don't know that song? Elder Sean said, oh, yeah. Sheree, you have that conversation when he gets home. And the light around me to become night. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night. You want God's light to go out so you can do your dirt. But you walk around talking about you a child of the light until it's convenient and you want to be a child of the darkness. He says in stanza 12, but this is what I like. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. Jesus is watching. And because he hasn't growled, and because you're not aware that he's there, he is there. Says to you, the night shines as bright as day. In other words, the psalmist David saying there's no difference between night and day with you. It's all the same. Darkness and light are the same to you. Now, this brings me to my second characteristic of God. He is omnipresent, which means that God is all present. Jordan, God is all present. Omnipresent means all present. So now David has outlined God's resume from stanza 7 through 12 to tell us that God is all present. Go back to Brother Nate Sullivan. He says, this term means that God is capable of being everywhere at the same time. He's here. He's at your house. He's in your car. He's in North Dakota. He's in Texas. He's in Michigan. He's in Florida. He's in Virginia, West Virginia. He's in Honolulu. He's in Iraq. He's in Iran. He's in Israel. He's everywhere all at the same time. Who would want to serve a God like that, that is watching? Said that the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. You ain't got to worry about it. Eventually, he's going to do the separating. It's getting quiet. Let me hear you. It's getting quiet in here. Omnipresent means all present. He said this term means that God is capable of being everywhere at the same time. It means his divine presence encompasses the whole of the universe. There is no location where he does not inhabit. He's in the jungle. He's in the gym. He's at work. He's at home. He is everywhere at once. And then stanza 13 through 18, and I'm going to bring it on home. David says, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Which says that life begins at conception. Uh-oh, I'll make somebody mad there. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. So at the point of conception, you were already a life that God knew everything about you. Righteousness. We got to stand for righteousness. Says, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Next time somebody say, you just too complex. You say, thank you for that compliment. Oh, you just reinforced what God told me. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be complex. Your workmanship is marvelous, how well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion. So even before my mom and my dad knew that was swimming, and before he got to his destination egg, you already knew I was existing. It says, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb, God knew you before anybody else knew that you were going to be you. Says you saw me before I was born. So at the point of conception, you're already life, and means God is already know that you were going to be created for a purpose, and he's already formed you in your mother's womb, it shows to me that you have purpose. He said, every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. Stanza 17, how precious are your thoughts about me? How precious are your thoughts about me? You need to tell yourself what God says about you, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're the head and not the tail. You're the lender, not the borrower. You need to speak over your life what God says about you and not what social media says. How precious are your thoughts about me? He doesn't have any evil thoughts towards you. He has plans to prosper you, to give you hope and a future. How precious are your thoughts about me? Stanza 17. Oh God, they cannot be numbered. God has so many great thoughts about you. He says they can't be numbered. You can't count them. But then you can't even count 2 or 3 great things about yourself. I can't even count them. And he said they outnumber the grain of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. We look at stanzas 13 through 18. David here is outlining another characteristic of God, and that is omnipotent. God is all powerful. Omnipotent means all powerful. God is all powerful. Nate Sullivan said God has supreme power. This means God can do what he wants. Well, why did God do that? Because he wanted to. Because he has all power in heaven and in earth in his hands. God is not subject to physical limitations like man. And being omnipotent, God has power over wind, water, gravity, physics. And what I like about him is that God's power is infinite or limitless. So many of you like the burglar in the story. Searching in the dark for what doesn't belong to you.
Happy New Year! It's a new year, and we're looking forward to what God has to say in 2021.
Join us each week as Pastor Corey gives biblical teaching for real-life solutions.
Until next time, keep allowing the word to impact your life.
See you next Sunday!